Hello everybody, welcome to this walkthrough of my personal finance spreadsheet. So a little story time. So I wanted a spreadsheet where I could set a budget and then track my actual spending and income against that budget. I also wanted to be able to track my assets and my net worth over time. I wanted to have a space where I could plan and forecast my finances into the future. And I also wanted like a nice cool little dashboard where you can delve into all the data. So that's what I wanted. And when I looked online for a template, I found that what was on the market either didn't fulfill all the requirements or it was just a bit messy or didn't look too nice. And that's obviously really important, as we know. So basically, after months and months of work, like God knows how many hours I've put into this, it's a lot. I've made my own. It's not AI generated, made with these own bare hands. I love it, and I'm hoping that you will too. So let's find out if you do. This video is going to be split into 3 chapters. Chapter number 1, how the spreadsheet operates. Chapter number 2, how to use the spreadsheet with a live example. And chapter number 3, how to get the spreadsheet set up for yourself. So, chapter 1, how the spreadsheet operates. So the spreadsheet has 9 tabs or sheets. For ease, I'm just going to call them tabs. That's what I usually call them. So you've got your 3 actuals tabs with your actual income, actual expenses, and actual assets. You then got your 3 budget tabs for those same 3 elements. There, and there. And you then have a data entry tab. So this is where you enter your data, and this automatically flows into the actual income and actual expenses tabs. These are all formulaed up. You can see it's filled up now, but they're basically a load of SUMIF formulas, so it pulls nicely into here. So all you have to do is put your actual transactions in here. You've then got a checklist tab. So this is to give you guidance on the order everything should be done in. Ticking things off also triggers like certain things in the spreadsheet, but we will get onto that later in the live example. And finally, the 9th tab is your dashboard to give you all the great insight into your finances. So there we go. So we will get into that a little bit later. There is also a hidden tab called mapping. Now, if you right click, you click unhide. There it is, mapping, click OK. This is where the magic happens. Forget beauty behind the madness. This is the madness behind the beauty. This is just all the data, the pivot tables. This is not for your eyes only. This is for my eyes only, yeah? You are not going to need this tab, but just in case you ever needed it, it is there. But you shouldn't, just to be absolutely clear, you should not need that. So I'm going to run through the tabs now. And the first set of tabs I'm going to run through is the actual income, actual expenses, and data entry tabs. Tabs. So for your income and your expenses, these are split out into categories and subcategories. So an expense category might be car, and then your subcategories are car insurance, MOT, fuel. You get the point, right? So subcategory is used when setting your budget and recording your actual transactions. And the category level is sort of a high level view that's just used in the dashboard. So in actual income, we have like a sort of salary template in here, just because I thought that is going to apply to most people, having a nice split out between, just to show what your gross, your deductions are, and then your net pay, which then your net pay you can then use to pull into your assets tab. But we'll get onto that. Obviously, if this section isn't of use to you, you don't have a salary and it's just other income sources, then you can just hide this section. And you can use any of the other 5 income categories which there is space for. So there's space for your salary information and then 5 other income sources if you need them. Obviously, you don't have to use them all. And then in expenses, there's space for up to 10 categories with a lot of lines for subcategories as well. Just a reminder, you don't touch any of the numbers in these tabs. Everything pulls in automatically from data entry. So let's play around with data entry now. In month, obviously, is easy. You just select the month that your income or expense is going to go to. Let's go... Well, it doesn't matter. But the point is, you then select income or expense, and then when you go to select subcategory, the drop-down list will automatically be all the subcategories you have for income. And then if you were to change that to expense, it would then automatically change it to all the subcategories you've got for expenses. So that's nice and easy. And if you think you have to like scroll down this list to like find it each time, if you start typing, then it comes up, right? So it's really easy to do. And then obviously you just put the corresponding amount in. Let's move on to budget income and budget expenses now. So the category and subcategory names will all pull in from the actuals tab. So you don't have to, there's no typing it out again. Everything automatically pulls in. As you can see here, for example, if there's obviously not one, then it will just pull in the 0 because there's an empty space there. But when things pull in, you then hide that row. So in here is where you'll set your budget. So you just type the numbers into here. It's different from the actuals tab. So in here, you type the numbers. There's no formulas in the cell. Same for expenses, just the exact same thing. You might think, I've not hidden this row. We'll come on to that. That's part of chapter 2. Don't get ahead of yourselves. Let's go on to actual assets. So here you will have space for up to 15 assets. So opening balance, closing balance for each asset, and then in the lines is recording any movements for those assets. There's no separate tab for liabilities. If you had a liability, then you would just put that down as like a negative asset, and obviously it would all just sum together to contribute towards your net worth in the dashboard. So it's the sum of all those closing balances, which will then equal the net worth row here. And that's what will pull into the dashboard. So at this point, you might have some questions about how do I best treat certain things like student loan debt, mortgages, etc. I'm going to go into that stuff in chapter 3. We'll really get into the details then. Now let's go into budget assets. So as before, like all the asset names and movement names for each asset, they all pull in from the actuals tab, so you don't have to type it out again. You can use this tab to forecast how you think, your net worth is going to change over time, and to plan out anything basically. And this is sort of your space to just play about with. There's no figures have to be correct. The checklist doesn't affect this. None of these figures pull into the dashboard. This is just your space to sort of plan out for the future. Speaking of the dashboard, let's go over to that now. So the dashboard can be separated into 3 sections. Section number 1 is this top one here. This is your current month section. So it will show you your income and your expenses for this current period, and summarised in a nice little top 5 income categories, top 5 expense categories for the month. Then you have your assets, so what the current value of all your assets are, with a top 5 there, sorted largest to smallest as well. And then how your net worth is tracked over time up to the current month. So if you're wondering if you know what month is showing for this section, it will be whatever the last month is in the net worth graph. So the net worth graph obviously only shows up to where you are in the year. Clever, I know, isn't it? Let's move on to section 2. Yes, this second section is for comparing your budget to your actuals. You select the month you want to look at using the slicer, and you get your budget versus actual figures broken down by category. You can even go with the full year as well if you want. I'm going to leave this in October for now. and we can have a bit of a deeper dive of this in chapter 2. But as you can see, everything's sort of split out, and it's easy to just compare your actuals against your budget for each category. And the final section is income and expenses across the year. So you can look at any income category or any expense category and look at how that's trended across the year. So you've got salary, you can see that's fairly consistent. This dashboard or this spreadsheet as a whole is sort of done up to November. And yeah, that's quite useful for just seeing how things have spiked over the year. For example, holidays will obviously have little individual spikes, and there's a nice sort of total for you here. So hopefully that all makes sense. And finally, last but not least, is the checklist tab. And in order to properly explain this one, it's best to go through this in the live example. So let's just get on with it. Let me now run you through an example of how somebody would use this spreadsheet in real life. So to do that, I need to tell you about Jimmy. Now, Jimmy uses a spreadsheet, right? So naturally, he is a cool guy. But as you've probably seen already, and as you will see, he is not your average fellow, but that's okay. The spreadsheet's for average people as well. So Jimmy has 3 main sources of income. Obviously his salary, he gets paid 100k a year and earns some commission as well. Don't ask me what he does. I don't know. Obviously he does well though. He also has a business where he sells air fresheners. Got some fantastic flavours on offer there. Bacon, Biscoff, popcorn, donut. I mean, I would buy. And it's a very stable business, as you are aware. He also owns a snail racing events company called Snail Track International, which you might have seen in the dashboard before. This is also a really good moneymaker for him. Who knew snail racing was such a lucrative business? I certainly didn't. Moving on to his expenses. Living costs, fairly standard. That should make sense. Food and drinks, very easy to budget for. He literally does the exact same weekly shop. As you can see, same number every month. Does the same weekly shop every week. And also has a white monster every day. He's clearly got a problem. This might go everywhere. Oh, we're all right. I dropped it before, so I thought it might go everywhere. But it's not that carbonated. Bloody hell. I can't feel my face. That'll keep me awake in the night. Sorry, right, back to expenses. He's got a racing snail that competes in the same races that he organises. This has caused controversy in the snail racing community, as you would imagine. But we'll get onto that in a little bit. So here's all the expenses relating to his racing snail. A sentence I never thought I would say. His racing snail actually could be also an asset on the balance sheet, if you will. I haven't done that in this instance. Feel like we don't need to do that. Obviously, racing snails are hard to sort of put a value on. It's quite subjective in the industry. He also has these other expense categories: health and fitness, Christmas, standard. These things don't really need much explanation. His assets, I also won't go through all of these right now. We'll do that in just a minute. But house, crypto, the business, his pension, pretty standard stuff. So as you've seen before, in the spreadsheet, we're actually currently in November. Now what we're going to do for this example is we're going to say, right, now it's the end of November. We're then going to fill in our final income and expenses for November, close off that period, and then roll into December. So let's now go through the checklist. So the first part in this closing out the current period would be to update actual income. So let's do that now. So I'm just going to put in the final income payments that he's had for this month. It's just the air fresheners that I need to put in. So you would go November. I'm just going to make this a bit easier for me. The type is income. And what we've got, bacon, Biscoff, popcorn, donut. And I'll put some random amounts here. I don't really care if he's against budget. This is just for illustrative purposes. So as you can see, now those amounts have pulled into this section of the spreadsheet here. And we're going to say, okay, that's all. That's it for November. That's all the income payments. As you can see, I've already had some stuff in here before. I didn't want to have to fill in absolutely everything in this example. So we can tick that off now. Actual expenses updated. So we're just going to put in his final expenses for the month. Snail physio. How much was that? I actually can't remember. £100. Snail insurance, that was 30 quid. Right, so now actually what we're going to do is one of his payments this month has actually been a legal settlement. And that relates to the whole racing snail sort of ordeal. And that's why I've left this row blank, is because I was going to put that into this space here. So I'm just going to put legal settlement. Then if we go to budget expenses, that will, yeah, you see, look, that's already pulled through there. So that's all good. What we're going to do is now I've entered that into there, I can select it from the drop down here, legal settlement. He had a legal case thrown at him because of match fixing allegations for fixing his own snail to win the snail race, obviously, which is just absolutely shameless. He didn't fancy being a prisoner, so he settled that case for £2,000. Expensive win, that. There's obviously something dodgy going on with him. He's not an angel, and he's not somebody you want to be acquainted with. I presume his racing snail's called Gary. He probably thought he earned it as well. It's a real shame for him. Anyway, right, we'll move on. So I've just put in the last categories here. Gym membership. His payment is £190 a month. Obviously goes to like David Lloyd or some fancy gym, which is nice. He's got a David Lloyd membership, but he doesn't know where the gym is. If you get that reference, serious ratings from me. Running shoes. He spends way too much on running shoes. He's got in the budget for £200 a month. That's weird. I don't know who would do that. It's not me. It's not. Promise. He's only spent £150 on a pair of running shoes this month. And running kit, let's just say 70 quid, you know. Nice cheap month for him. So, as you can see, this will have all pulled in. Yep, £2,000 pulled in. So this is all pulled into the actual expenses tab. So I'm happy with that. I'm happy that, you know, my expenses account is actually equal to minus 1,900. Obviously that legal settlement wasn't in the budget, so that really has taken a hit. So what we're going to do is go to the checklist and then tick that off. What I didn't mention before was actual income. Once you've ticked that off, it then automatically shades that column orange. So that is sort of just a signal that that period is locked, that period is closed. The figures aren't actually locked, like the numbers can physically still change, but it's just visually to show you that this is where you're up to. So that'll have just done the same thing. Yep, so the November column is now all shaded once you tick that. So now let's go down and update the actual assets. So now we're just going to go down each asset and make sure that the closing balance is what we're expecting. So Our expenses account in our bank, that matches. Cash accounts, let's just say that they're correct. The house, obviously I'm happy with, that's the value of the house, and that's the value of the mortgage balance. Crypto, right, so this is where we'll see what the movements are. Let's say it's been a good month, right? £2,030 increase in Bitcoin. And Dogecoin is tanked. No, it's not tanked. We'll just go minus 500. It's just gone down a bit. So these are the two ways of valuing an asset. Either you can, let's look at cash accounts here, right? I'm not interested in what the movements are, the movement amounts within my cash accounts. But I'm also not interested in, let's say you got a few savings accounts or something. I'm not interested in having each one as an asset. I just want to know what the total sum of all my cash is. So you have one asset called cash accounts, and then each line, you can just do a reversal of the closing balance. So this is just the minus of the opening balance. So all you have to do is then just type in what the current balance is of the account into this line here. So savings account 1 just has 25,700 in. Savings account 2 has 17,000 in. I think you get the point. So that's one way of doing it. Another way of doing it is just like this, where you're listen, I'm not interested in showing what the actual balance of Bitcoin and Dogecoin are in my crypto portfolio, and I'm not interested in showing them separately. I just sort of want one asset of crypto to be summarized. But I do want to track the movements, so you would then display it like this. So you just know, right, my Bitcoin and my Dogecoin, I've said what the movements are. My Coinbase or whatever is showing as 74,940. All good. Next one. The business, right. Legal settlement this month, right? So obviously that sort of damages the brand of the business. We're going to say, absolute stinker, it's now valued at 250,000. Because of all the negative press, I'm not going to, this isn't a lesson on how to value a business, just for argument's sake. Obviously, if you want to include that. Also, pension, so let's say the same. He's got an actual poor pension here, considering he's on more than 100 grand a year. But let's say, decent month, £103 it went up in value. Well, that's actually not decent for how big the pension is. Anyway, you get the point. Pension is showing as 65,000. Cool. So I'm happy with all of those. I then go to checklist, tick off actual assets. Boom. That all then, just as before, highlights in orange to show that that's fixed. That was November. That was November, ladies and gentlemen. So now we go on to forecast next period. Now you might be thinking, why am I forecasting the next period before I've done sort of my transfers between my accounts and stuff? So the way I do it is when I get paid, that's the start of the month for me. So my pay goes, if I get paid at the end of November, that's actually the first thing in December for me. And then I want to move some money to a savings account. But when I move that money to savings account, I don't just do a set amount per month. I just want to move some money to my savings account, and whatever's left to be the amount that I've budgeted for expenses in my expenses account for that next month. So to know what that figure is, I have to have done my budget already. So let's go to budget income. Budget income, obviously he's got a sweet 10k bonus coming in. Well, that's what the budget says. Who knows if that actually comes in. But that's what it's budgeted for. Just the same amounts as ever for the old air freshener business. And it's just some local events in the old snail racing. So, yeah, happy with that as the budget. Expecting that to come in. That is shaded orange. Now I've ticked it off. We then budget expenses. Right. So then we're going to budget for the following month. As you can see, I've already got some stuff in here. I am going to say that there's no expected legal settlements. He's a good boy now. I don't really know if he is, but there's going to be no more match fixing from Johnny. Is his name Johnny? What was his name? Johnny. Jimmy. His name was Jimmy. Sorry. Right, Jimmy. Good boy. He Christmas. We're budgeting for December now. He is going to. We're going to budget for Christmas. Right. Let's say 5 family members. He loves Christmas. This is the thing about Jimmy. Zoella calendars for advent calendars for everyone. 50 quid each. They're definitely not 50 quid now. You're probably getting for 5 quid. They're probably not even on sale anymore, to be honest. Christmas tree. I'll be honest, I don't know how much a Christmas tree cost. Probably more than I think. Christmas presents. Oh, he's got money. Let's go with £2,000. Probably should be spending more. He's still a little bit stingy. Decorations. Let's go 500. 5,000, quite a lot. Holidays, he's not booking any holidays this month. He's not doing anything. And then just your usual subscriptions. Cool, happy with that. Bloody happy. So let's tick off that. Budget expenses, let's just show it. Yeah, it's all shaded. Cool. Happy days. Next bit is the next period movements. So, making transfers between the accounts. So what I'm going to do is I am going to input his, so let's say he's just been paid from his day job. What he does is he moves £1,000 to one savings account, £1,000 to another savings account, and then anything else, any extra or any footfall that he has to make up comes from crypto or sends to his crypto wallet. Absolutely mental. I don't know who would do that, to be honest. That's not even a joke. I obviously don't do that. And what I'm also going to do is just go equals minus and then linking Park. Linking the expenses, so the total expenses here, so then that automatically works in there. So then obviously, I'm not physically sending any transfers right now, but if I was, then I would do that now and then tick that off. And then finally, check the balances in the close. Check the closing balances. So, just been paid. Got that much in the account. As you'll notice, it's just got my rule in here of. It's just got my rule set up where you say, because you'll notice that closing balance, that's the exact amount we've budgeted to spend for December. That's set up in there. Let me know if anyone wants help doing that. I'm happy to do that and set that up for you. So we're just going to go down and check that all the closing balances match what we actually have. So let's say now I've sent that grand over each. It's taken that into account. The value of the house is, let's say, still 600 grand. Obviously, I've got it in here. He bought a nice house. Well, 600 grand house. I don't know where that could probably buy quite a lot. Probably a nice house in the hills. And let's go to budget assets where I've got the mortgage balance. So you then put in your current mortgage balance, which is now, you're happy that you've got 72,000 in equity. Let's say crypto hasn't moved, value of the business hasn't moved, still 250 grand. And pension, I've got in that amount for the next month. And that's the current value. So I'm happy, right? So now I'm happy that when the dashboard rolls over to December, that it's going to be showing accurate figures, basically. So let's go back to the checklist. Let's tick this one off. Now this obviously means everything in November will be ticked off, and that will be the trigger for the dashboard to roll forward to December. So let's see that in action. Tick. Here we go. Dashboard. November. December. Right? So obviously, as you can see, I've we've not put in anything for income or expenses yet for December, so that's what's showing there. And in the graph, it's now showing December. So that is beautiful. That's perfect. As you can see, his net worth took a bit of a dip. That's obviously due to the valuation of the business. So now you're at this point. Obviously, you're in December. November's fully closed off. So now you can just go about your normal life, and just then update your December income and expenses as you go along like normal. So now we've closed off November. Let's say what you want to do is you want to review your November figures. You want to see, right, now November's finished, like, how did I actually do against my budget? How much extra, probably, did I actually spend? So, to do that, the important bit here is because these work off a slicer, it means that works off a pivot table, or two pivot tables, actually. And because they work off pivot tables, you have to go to data and refresh, and hit refresh. So, data, just hit refresh all, bang, that will have refreshed. You might be saying nothing's moved. It's because it's got October selected. So now you go into November, and then it pulls in November amounts. So let's just check that. It's nice and easy to check against this bottom bit here as well. You can see like the total income was 18,755, which it shows there, 18,755, and the total expenses 692235. And there it shows 692235. And then obviously you can use this to say, obviously we spent way too much money this month on the old racing snail. That was a legal settlement thing. Actually underspent on the old health and fitness. You get the point. I'm not going to blab on for ages about this. Like, it's pretty self-explanatory here. Chapter 3, how to get the spreadsheet set up for yourself. So the first thing I would do is obviously keep the original template as a copy, make a copy and rename it 2026, or if you're watching the future, obviously a future year. So you've still got that original template. So if you mess anything up, which you're not going to do, I trust you, you're not, then you've got that blank template there. And mainly for future years, so that once you finish with this year's, you can then create a copy and then go again for a future year. Then obviously just a small thing, but in the dashboard it currently says 2026. Obviously change that to 2027. When you're setting this up, this is obviously best done at the start of a month, so you can sort of capture all your income and expenses for that month. But obviously there's no hard or fast rule. It's just obviously that's going to make it easier for you. As I mentioned before, the template has space for salary, all these gross pay and deduction lines, and 5 income categories, 10 expense categories, but you've also got quite a lot. How many have you got? I'm not sure what that is, but quite a lot of subcategory lines. So you might be like, oh, but I've got like 11 expense categories, which I apologize for, but I'm sure you could like lump a couple together, because there's up to 150 lines for subcategories. So that should be enough space for everyone. And 15 assets. I think 15 assets, hopefully that should be all good for everybody. So the first thing you're going to have to do is name your categories. So for example, here you would put, let's say, what have you got as an income source? Let's say you do full-time YouTube, or not full-time, but you make some money from YouTube. That will be your category. What could you do? You could do AdSense, brand deals, and anything you don't use, you will need to actually delete. Like, it's not good enough to just hide these ones. You need to actually get rid of the subcategory naming as well, because, well, you don't absolutely have to, but it just will mean that when you look in your subcategory lines here, that there's just a load of lines that you're not using. What you want is everything let's go. Let's say you're not even using that at all. Get rid of that. Get rid of all those lines. So anything with a blank space, it doesn't pull in. So now it's literally just got those two names there, so that when you go to subcategory, you can then select from the drop down of just those two. Nice. Okay. Hopefully that makes sense. You would just do the same then for actual expenses. Naming your categories, naming your subcategories. Also, just so it looks better, anything that's empty, I will just hide, just like that. Hide that, and then obviously any unused categories, just the whole thing really. Just makes it a little bit look a little bit nicer. Now, please remember, just hide the rows. Don't delete the rows. So if you ended up deleting these lines, and then you actually wanted to add in another line here, like, I don't know, some type of videos, then the formulas like wouldn't pull in to this space here. Like, that will have been messed up. So don't do that. Don't delete rows, just hide them. Next thing you're going to want to do is name your assets and all the movements. And this is going to be different for everyone. Everybody has different sort of bank accounts, a pension. Include exactly what you want. It's totally flexible. You don't have to include absolutely everything if you don't want to. And what I would do here is, as before, actually with this it doesn't matter. Like, you don't absolutely have to get rid of the names. You can just hide. You can end up like just hiding them. So what you do is just add in the names. So for example, net pay. This is like your main bank account. And you get paid in here, and all your expenses go to here. So net pay, transfer to savings. You get the point. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. And then in here is obviously you can put any formulas you want. So if you want, you can go equals and then automatically link that into your net pay, which will be here. I know I've got rid of that, bad example. But a key thing to note here is, please don't, you can if you want to, but if you do, drag across and just go, oh cool, like now it's linked in here. If you do drag it across, that will mess with the conditional formatting. The conditional formatting I'm talking about, obviously, is if you are ticking off January and then it just highlights all January to show that that period's closed. That would then copy across to all of them, and all of these cells here would then be highlighted. So that messes up with it. Yes, it's annoying. I'm sorry. If you don't care about the colouring at all, that's fine. You can just drag it across. But what I would do is just copy, right click, and then put this option here, paste options, formulas. So that then does that, but it importantly keeps the conditional formatting. So I'm going to get rid of that now. I guess instead of that conditional formatting, you could just hide the months as you go along. You're more than welcome to do that, obviously, but personally, for me, I like the whole shading and still being able to see the full year and that not moving. Final thing for this bit is, you probably worked it out already, but anything with a light shaded yellow means it's got a formula in. Obviously, I've not included it for these bits, like the sum if ones that mean that all your transactions pulling from the data entry, but just for the sort of net pay, closing balances and opening balances are all formulaed up. So the opening balance for Feb will be equal to the closing balance for Jan. So sort of just leave those alone, don't touch them. And as before, like a light orange will just mean that period is closed, or the budget is set for that period. So now I'm just going to go over a couple of specific examples of how I would treat certain things. Again, you don't have to listen to me here. This is just my take on things. You can listen or not. So as I mentioned before, for example, when I get paid at the end of November, I treat that as my like trigger to roll over to the next period. And so when I get my pay for the end of November, that actually goes in as the first thing in December. Now, the reason I do that is because I think it makes sense. In December, that's the money you're spending. Your December expenses are paid for with the money, with that income, if that makes sense. So I think it makes sense in December. First thing it does is your income comes in, and then you're spending that money down. The data entry section, how often should you update this? It's completely up to you, but personally, I find that once a week is perfect. If you were just uploading, if you were just updating this every month, then it would be quite a lot, I think. And if you've sort of missed anything, then it would be harder to figure out. But I think once a week is perfect because it's just 10 minutes, maybe not even that, but let's say 10 minutes just a week. I do on a Saturday morning, just updating this and making sure that the bank accounts in your assets are showing the correct closing balance, so you know you've definitely included all your expenses, and that's that. A credit card. What do you do if you have a credit card? Obviously, you could have it included as your own asset, and it would just be a negative, as I mentioned before, like a liability. It would just be a negative asset. But personally, what I do is I have all of my expenses leaving out of combined one bank account and from one credit card. And then I just have my first asset being expenses account. And then the sum of the balance of my credit card and my main bank account, I just make sure that the sum of that obviously matches the closing balance of the asset. I'm not saying you need a credit card. Just remember, credit cards are like relationships. If you need one, you shouldn't have one. Yeah? I'll let you sit with that for a bit. Mortgage payments and house. So you might be saying to me, Sam, mortgage payments, why have you got mortgage payments in your expenses? It's not an expense, you're just paying down your debt. But from a cash perspective, it is an expense. So I would say just put it in there, and then in your actual assets, as you've seen before, in Jimmy's example, I've shown how I would personally account for the house and how much equity you have in it. Just putting the value and then the sort of reducing of the mortgage balance. That's how you would show that your debt's reduced. By all means, don't include your mortgage payments in your expenses if you don't want, but I think that makes the most sense. And finally, student loan payments and debt. So me personally, I just have my student loan as one of the deductions in my gross pay, and my student loan is not in my assets as a big debt because it gets wiped after 30 years anyway. So it would be weird to have in 30 years time this big spike in your net worth because it got wiped off. I would treat it just like that as a deduction, or if you obviously make any student loan payments outside of that, just treat it as an expense, really. I think that makes the most sense. So there we go. All done. Hopefully that's all made sense. If you do like this spreadsheet, then tell your friends about it. Go and buy one in the link down below. There's going to be a sale on for the first 2 weeks of when this video goes live. If you're here after that, sorry, my apologies. I wish I could be different, but I can't. After that, it's going to be full price. So just a nice little sort of benefit for the early adopters and the subscribers to the channel. But there is an opportunity for you to get the spreadsheet for free. So during this video, I've mentioned several words and phrases which can be linked together. And your job is to guess what that link is. Now, a clue, because that might sound a bit hard, a clue is that the link has also been mentioned in this video. There is only one winner. So the first person to mention it in the comments below wins. And the rest of you are losers. Couple of final things. If you are in a different country, use a different currency, let me know if you are interested in having the spreadsheet, but with a different currency, and because that could obviously be something I hopefully wouldn't take too long to set up in a different currency and have a separate US dollar or euro template. think that might be quite useful. And finally, if you would like me to help you set up the spreadsheet for yourself so you can get it all up and running, then there's also a link in the description of this video for you to book a call, and we can do it then. So thank you very much, everyone. And remember, please go to the link below to purchase the spreadsheet. And happy spreadsheeting. Remember, that's the most important thing. We're all here to share our love of spreadsheets.